I'm Charleene Closshey, and I am the composer and producer of the album Aligned, a planetary mantra and gong shower. The title Aligned comes from the idea that all of life, here and there, is nothing but a series of repeated patterns. When we align these patterns onto themselves, there's less resistance, which means there's greater flow. Flow makes things easy. So whenever we can align vibration, we have greater connectivity to information and manifestation, either on the outside world or in our inner landscapes. The album came from a very honest place of just finding new ways to align my own system and deep diving into the mathematical understandings of how vibrations work as they do, and connecting that with this more intimate, personal experience of, well, what do these vibrations feel like in my body? What am I noticing? What shifts are happening? Can I be more open to understanding who I am on a deeper level, on a core level? This was definitely a hands-on kind of album. There was pretty much nothing that I didn't touch, which was neat because that was the whole point. For me, it was about bringing the creativity through, of actually feeling that through my physical body. And for all of my musician friends out there who, you pick up your instrument and you go to town, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And this was interesting because I had to flow that same creativity in different ways. I wasn't picking up an instrument. I wasn't necessarily sitting down in front of a keyboard to allow things to flow out. There was a need to connect with new instruments. There were needs to connect with a voice in a very, very different way. There were sounds on this album that came out of me that I didn't even know I could make. But in the moment, no different than a really brilliant jazz trio who's sitting there and just improvising based on what they're feeling, what they're vibing with each other, and what's coming out, what the audience is giving, how it's flowing. Like, it was the exact same experience, except my trio it was the gongs, it was the space sounds. And then I got to kind of build that set out with the ambient compositions, really setting up that story, almost like a film score in that sense. But then bringing the voice in and diving through and moving through, it was a pretty intense experience. There's 4 main components to Aligned, a planetary mantra and gong shower. The first, there's mantra. The second, there's gongs. The third, there's new ambient compositions that directly connect to the frequencies of the planets, plus the sounds of space, recorded and brought to you by NASA. Interestingly enough, mantra actually means mind tool. It's a tool of the mind to disconnect from a defined pattern that limits free flow of information moving throughout our physical systems. So when we connect mantra and music, it's just a different expression of mantra. The music begins to help us release aspects of constriction within our physical spaces. I mean, that's what music does. You listen to music that you enjoy because it feels good. So when we apply mantra to that, our bodies are already coming into a relaxed state where we can receive these undefinable, non-specific, yet very specific frequencies that engage our cells in a variety of ways, depending on what mantras or mantra we're using, to elicit a corresponding response. So we specifically use, me, myself, and I. So the mantras that are used are actually specifically related to each particular planet or their corresponding archetype from Vedic astrology. We're constantly surrounded in vibration. We are swimming in a sea of vibration. And that's one of the things that Hans Cousteau, he was a physicist and kind of a bit of a maverick mathematician, that he really tapped into and he understood. He determined that there is an indirect proportional relationship between the oscillation of a planet, orbiting, think of it that, spinning, as well as the specific sound frequency that we would experience. So with this mathematical formulation, Cousteau went through and calculated the very specific Hertz frequencies connected to each planet and what note that particular planet is giving off. Of course, it's unique to that planet. It's unique to the universe. It's not in the confines of our Western, well-tempered understanding of our, 12-degree note scale with very set patterns that we kind of begin to define this world in. We're starting to live outside of a well-tempered space. So Cousteau in his writing and that understanding of that inverse relationship between the oscillation of the planet and then its perceived frequency, he really began to understand too, there's harmonic resonance and relationships that are happening in the space around us, and how these frequencies are being received to where we are right here, right now on the planet Earth is always kind of shifting and moving as well. So we tap into these ancient understandings with correlating it to the modern science and creating music that affects the physical body. So the NASA sounds vary with each track. So some of the tracks are very specific. So you absolutely hear Jupiter, you absolutely hear Saturn at the end of the tracks, and you just sit in the sound of the magnificence of these celestial bodies. They're just incredible. You don't even need music to augment the power of these frequencies. Other tracks, we connect with space sounds for a variety of reasons, either because a recording wasn't in existence or because there was something about a track that needed just a little bit of ambiance to allow the planet almost as though the space sounds were providing the backdrop for the planet to shine through. Other times we really wanted to hear the planet. Other times we wanted to feel that we're spinning around this orbiting globe, whichever one it was in the moment. So there's a combination of specific planet sounds and space sounds that kind of let us dance in these currents of the universe. This album's designed to have a very specific musical listening experience because it's designed to help physically transform your physical system. So this music's actually been scientifically shown to stimulate it's the 10th cranial nerve. It's the vagus nerve. It's called the wandering nerve. It's the longest nerve in our body. The vagus nerve touches all of our main systems. And by touching, I mean it stimulates, it activates. And when we activate our physical systems, it gives our body a chance to return to homeostasis. What happens when we return to homeostasis? We start to feel a little better. Our cells actually begin to regain their original functioning. To me, this album is all about the listener. It's about whatever the listener needs to experience. I think we live in a world where we need good vibrations. We need opportunities to really connect and lock in who we are and who we are in our world and be that strong individual that's compassionate and loving and open. To be that anchor that others can connect to in their times of need, but also be willing to flow and move and experience the pain and the hurt ourselves, because it's what makes us human. To move from a point of compassion. So if these vibrations help us to expand our perspective in any way, that's what I hope. I hope it's a ripple effect that's so much greater than any single one of us. So my hope, goal, desire for this album is for the people who need to hear these particular frequencies for whatever reason, wherever they may be in the world, to be able to experience them.